Hey guys, how's it going? I hope everybody's doing well out there today. One of the questions that comes up pretty frequently, whether it's in the comment section of my YouTube videos or in the live chat when we're doing live streams and that sort of thing periodically, is people ask a lot about note-taking and documentation applications and which ones we recommend as people who have tested several of them out. And we try to give our recommendations based on what is needed, but a new one popped into my radar recently, and by new, I don't necessarily mean new, but new to me anyway, and it's called CodeX Docs. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to install CodeX Docs using Docker. But before we get into that, I do have a quick message from today's video sponsor. Do you find managing your IT assets overwhelming? Let Marmot.io simplify that for you. Marmot.io is an IT asset management solution offering an efficient way to track, manage, and optimize your IT resources. And because the folks at Marmot.io want you to be in full control of your data at all times, they're even working on making it so you can self-host Marmot.io in your own Docker container on your own hardware. Marmot allows you to keep tabs on your IT assets, including hardware, software, and licenses in one centralized location. You can also seamlessly manage your IT assets from purchase to disposal, ensuring efficient use throughout the life cycle of your device. You can also reduce and optimize your IT asset utilization, cutting unnecessary costs and enhancing efficiency. Marmot also has an integrated QR code system, and with this, tracking your assets becomes as simple as scanning a QR code. Each asset gets its own unique QR code, making identification and tracking effortless and accurate. With Marmot, you can gain a comprehensive view of all of your IT assets, know what you have, where it's located, and who's using it. Be sure to use the link in the description and use code DBTech6 to enjoy 6 months free on both the paid starter and pro plans. Take control of your IT asset management with Marmot.io, where efficiency meets innovation, using the link in the video description. So I think the easiest way for me to show you how CodeX Docs works is actually to jump over to their own documentation. So this is CodeX Docs. They actually use their own application to tell you about their application, and I think that's pretty cool. Like they've got enough confidence in their application to use it for their own documentation. I think that's great, and I just want to kind of run through some of this stuff real quick to show you how this works. So this is our Docs, our CodeX Docs homepage. Basically, CodeX is the name of the development team, and Docs is the name of the application. So they stuck them together, and here we've got CodeX Docs. Basically, like it says here, CodeX Docs is a simple, free application for your internal, public, or personal docs. It's based on editor.js with a little link there, which is allowing to work with content with a nice and clean UI or user interface. You can also check out the demo app, which I think is kind of silly because that's where we are. This is the demo app, and I dig it. Of course, maybe they've got a way to log in with that, but basically, we've got our title here. We've got a little intro paragraph. We've got an image. We've got some features down here, like we mentioned earlier, editor.js powered. You can nest documents and create any structure you need. I think that's a bit of a misnomer. It's not quite accurate, and I'll show that later. It looks nice on mobile and desktop, which I appreciate. We've got beautiful page URLs, so human readable and SEO friendly. Basically, you get to control what that page is named. We'll talk about that later as well. We've also got hawk hunting for error tracking. We've got misprints, reports for Telegram and Slack. We've got Yandex Metrica integration. We're not going to get too much into those things because I think it's beyond the scope of just introducing the container. It's easily deployable and requires no extra database or other dependencies. Simple configuration, 100% agree with that. And you can tune it as you need by collapsing sections or hiding the sidebar. And just to show that real quick, like if we come over here to the left-hand side, we can collapse our sections and open them up. Oops, I sure messed that up. And kind of open these up and do what we got to do there. Also, if you want to close the sidebar, just a little toggle right down there as well. So super easy to kind of get the best use out of your workspace while you're doing stuff. If we come back over and take a look at the pages here, the getting started, it's quite easy. We can clone the repo, fill in the description, config menu, etc., and then click run. There's an easier way to do this, and I'm going to show you how in this video. We're going to use Docker, which is kind of the next thing down here. But basically, one of the things that I really like that they did was, and this may be part of the editor.js framework that they used, is they've got their we've got a heading and a subheading, another subheading, and another subheading, and a heading and a subheading, another subheading, and then another heading, right? And you'll see as I'm scrolling through this page, each of those different headings and subheadings over here on the right-hand side is highlighting. So you can just jump from one part of the page to the other by just clicking the headings over here in this little outline that's automatically generated when you create your content. Love it. I think it's a great little add-on there. Really dig how easy it makes this application to use when you're writing or reading the documentation that's here on the site. We've got some configuration stuff over here on the next tab with some additional properties for like ports and host and uploads and all kinds of different environment variables that you can use to expand the functionality of your setup. So I dig that. We've also got a Kubernetes deployment using Helm. So you can read through that if you want to go that route. And then there's also this option over here to migrate from version 1. So I would assume then we're at least on version 2. If we jump over to the features page, we kind of already looked at this, but if you need to create an issue or have suggestions, things like that, jump over to their GitHub repo and do that there. While we're talking about their GitHub repo, if you like this this application, this container, whatever, if you dig the project, go over to their GitHub repository and give it a star. It's kind of the same thing as giving a video a thumbs up. It just lets the creator know that you've got interest in this. The more stars that a developer or development team gets, the more opportunities they have for other little perks on GitHub and other third-party services. So if you really want to help them out, you can definitely give them a star. You can probably support them financially if you wanted to do that as well. But giving these projects a star is a great way to not only give them encouragement, but also get updates when there are new releases of the application. Next, under features, we'll jump down here a little bit. We've got authentication. Now, the thing about this is there's just a single password to log into this. So whether you're just one person documenting your application or whatever it is you're doing, or you're a team, there's just one single password to gain access to this. I'm sure that was done on purpose just to not have to worry about credentials and user rights and all that sort of thing. But just know that this is a single user system that only requires a password and no username to log in with. So something to keep in mind there. As far as writing is concerned, you can have parent pages. You can move things around, moving pages up and down with nesting. We'll talk about that a little bit. There is one little nesting issue that I found that we're going to talk about as well. And then the alias effectively becomes the URL slug, kind of like up here in the URL where it says writing. That is the alias that they gave to this page. It will automatically default to whatever the title of the page is, but you can change it if you need to. The next three are things we're not going to get into which is like the misprints reporting, the Yandex Metrica integration, and the UI controls. There's really not much to go over in those, and the misprints and the Yandex are kind of outside the scope of a general introduction to an application. So we're going to skip that for right now. There's also code contribution that you can jump over to, again, if you want to help them write their code, become part of the team, whatever. There's more information about that here. And of course, they've got CodeX, which kind of gives you just a little bit more about the team, that sort of thing. So there was a quick demonstration on kind of what the interface, the front end looks like on CodeX Docs. Actually, it was nice to be able to use their own website to demonstrate how their application works. So I think the next step is to show you how to get CodeX Docs installed using Docker. We're going to do this through command line because we do have to create a file in command line before we deploy it. You could just create the file that we need, and I'll get to that in a minute, and then deploy the rest of it in like Portainer or Dockage or Yacht or whatever. But just to keep things simple, we will be deploying this container using Docker command line. So hopefully you'll join me for this part of the video here. Okay, so here we are. We're back on their getting started page of their documentation. What I want to do is actually come over here to where it says using Docker. And right here, the first thing we need to do is actually create this docs-config.yaml file. So what we're going to do is just copy that command. So here we are. We're on our server, basically. I'm using Proxmox for the sake of this tutorial. This is kind of my testing and tutorial environment. However, you don't have to do this in Proxmox. It's just how I'm going to do it for the sake of this tutorial. So the first thing I want to do is paste in that command of that touch docs-config.yaml and hit enter. And then if I do an ls, there is that file. So basically the reason we're doing that is because sometimes when we deploy a Docker Compose file, like we're going to here in a minute, that has a file in it, like there's this docs-config.yaml, oftentimes what will happen is it will create a folder called docs-config.yaml instead of a file. So to prevent that from happening, we're going to create that file first by giving the command touch space and then the file name, and that will just generate an empty file that the Docker Compose can now use without having to worry about it creating a folder instead. So the next thing that we want to do here is actually go ahead and create a Docker Compose .yml file, and we're just going to use Nano to do that. You can use whatever editor you want, but I like Nano. Like so, we'll hit enter, and then what we're going to do is come back over to their code right here, and we're going to copy that as well. And we're going to paste this in. Now we're going to change a few different things here because I don't really like the way it was done. So the first thing is let's start at the top. We've got a version 3.2 Docker Compose. Basically, different versions of Docker Compose allow you to do different things in the Docker Compose. 3.2, perfectly fine for what we're doing here, so we're not going to touch it. Next, our services are going to be listed under here. Our first and only service in this case is just called Docs. And our image is going to be pulled from the GitHub container repository, or the GitHub repository, whatever you want to call it, and it's /codex team /codex.docs. And what we're going to do here is actually go to the end of the line and change this to latest. I tried the v2 earlier and it didn't deploy correctly, so I just changed it to latest and everything worked just fine. Now, next, we've got some ports on 3000, but we've got this 127001 here. We're going to remove all of that. We don't need it. Now, like I mentioned, by default, this is going to deploy on port 3000. If you've already got another Docker container running on port 3000, you'll want to change this line, but only one part of it. Basically, we're going to come to the beginning of the line here, this first 3000. We're going to change it to 3030. And we're not going to change the colon or the second 3000. Basically, 3030 is how we're going to access it in our browser. 3000 in this case, because it's after the colon, is what the container is looking for on the inside. So don't change the colon or anything after it. Next, we've got an environment variable of app config auth password. This is that single password that we're going to use to log in to our dashboard to create the documentation. I'm going to leave this as Codex, but don't do that. If you're going to put this in production, don't change or don't leave the password as Codex. Change it to something else. It's bad practice to leave passwords as they are in a situation like this. So definitely change that to something else. Next, we've got 3 volumes. The first one is for uploads. The second one is for the database that it has built in, which I'm guessing, I haven't actually looked, but I'm guessing it's a SQLite or SQLite database. And then next, we're mapping that docs-config.yaml file to a specific location inside the container. So all of this is going to happen basically in the directory that we're currently in. So I'm not going to change anything here, but you could absolutely remap these to a different location on your server if you wanted to, by doing something like, home docker docs like that. Change all of your lines to map wherever you need to on your setup. But again, for the sake of what we're doing here, I'm going to keep it simple, and I'm just going to make sure everything happens in this directory. So once we're happy with this, we can do Control O and then Enter and Control X to save and exit. And now I'm going to clear my screen, and I'm going to do Docker compose up-D. If you run this and you get an error saying that command isn't recognized, it means that you're on an older version of Docker Compose, and you'll want to change this to be Docker -compose up-D. Also, you'll probably want to consider upgrading to the newest version of Docker Compose. Version 2 doesn't require the dash in the middle, and because that's what I'm on, I'm going to remove it. Also, the -D is important because if you deploy this and close the terminal window, it will actually shut down the container. So putting the -D makes it so that the container isn't dependent on the console being open. So we're just going to run the simple command and hit enter. And I already ran through this once, and I'm re-recording this video because there was static in my audio earlier. So that's why that deployed so quickly. Yours will probably not deploy that quickly. But once it has said that it is started, now we can go over to a different browser tab and get logged in. And here we are, just that quickly and easily, our CodeX Docs container is up and running. So what we're going to do is click on Add Page. Now, it should have asked me to log in, but again, because I'm re-recording this due to audio issues, it didn't ask me to log in. There's no way to log out. I hadn't actually noticed that. That is something that I hope they fix. They need a logout button, and I don't see one anywhere on my screen. So maybe the developers will see this and they will add a logout button, because I think that'll be super important. So anyway, when you first come to this page, it's going to ask you to log in. You're just going to put in whatever password you put on that password line in your Docker Compose. Again, mine was CodeX, so that's what it logged me in with. But it didn't show that because I was already logged in from a previous recording of this video. So let's jump back in. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a couple of pages just real quickly here. Our first page, it's going to be at the root because there's no other place to put it. So I'm just going to call this lipsum, lipsum1. And then I'm going to go over to lipsum, and I'm just going to grab a couple of paragraphs here like so, and I'm going to paste them in. And what I dig about this system is that each of these, like the lipsum line, the header there, the paragraph, they've each got these little icons next to them. And we can add text, heading, image, links, whatever, right? Like that is how you can add an additional code block. Or you can click right here and move the paragraphs around with just a simple click. Or you can delete the paragraphs by clicking there twice. And I actually really appreciate that you have to click it twice just as a little bit of a fail-safe to prevent you from accidentally deleting a paragraph or some element on the page. So let's actually add a list. Let's do that. So we're going to call this item 1, item 2, and item 3. So now we've got that. So there's not really much going on here. And I mentioned earlier that we should start seeing kind of a framework layout over on this right-hand side of the page. We're not seeing that. So let's fix that, right? So let's come over here and add a new heading. And then we're going to call this heading 1. And we're going to call this one, oops, I lied. We're going to come back over to here, and we're going to grab this, and we're going to move it up. And then we're going to do this. We're going to call this, call this heading 2. And then we're going to do one more. We're going to call it a heading as well. We're going to call it heading 3. And then we're going to move this up like so. And now we've kind of got our layout, but again, we're not getting that sidebar over there. And the way we're going to do that is actually by clicking Save Changes. And there we've got our different headings right there. And we can jump around. If this page was longer, we could jump around in this page by clicking those different headings. Now, there's a couple other things that I want to show just real quickly. We're going to create a couple more pages just real quick. I'm going to call it lipsum 2. Oops. Get clicked in there. 2. And then we're going to grab a couple of different paragraphs like so. And we're going to paste that in there. And we're not going to worry about the additional headings and list items and that sort of thing. I think you kind of get the idea of how those work. But what I want to do is show that we can either have this be its own separate page, right? So we've got lipsum 1 and lipsum 2 here as separate kind of main heading pages. Or if we click Edit, we can make lipsum 1 the root and click Save. And now it is a sub page under lipsum 1, and we can toggle that open and closed. Or we can come over here and click Edit. We can say that we want this to be root. We can change the alias like we had mentioned before. So lipsum 2 would be the slug in the URL. And let's click Save, because we've got to bring it out of there to give us some different options, right? So now we can move this around, and we can say I want lipsum 2 to be, we want to put this above lipsum 1. So I click Save, and now lipsum 2 is the top page there. But let's switch that back. Let's actually go to lipsum 1. We're going to edit this and put this back at the top, right, like so. And now, just for the sake of showing something that I found interesting about something they had said earlier. Okay, so right here, this docs nesting, create any structure you need. I'm going to disprove that. And I'm not trying to be a jerk. I just want to show that there is a flaw in how this is currently laid out, at least as far as I can tell. And maybe the devs will see this and fix it, right? So we're going to come back over to here. We're going to create a new page. We're going to call this lipsum 3. Oops. 3. And I'm going to go ahead and paste this in. And I'm going to say Save Changes. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start nesting some things, right? I'm going to say lipsum 2, we're going to edit, and I'm going to make lipsum 1 the parent page, and we're going to click Save. right? So now we've got Lipsum 1 with Lipsum 2 as a subpage. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to nest Lipsum 3 under Lipsum 2 to kind of disprove what they said here about docs nesting, create any structure you need, right? So if I come over to here and I say I want to edit Lipsum 3 and I want the root page to be Lipsum 2, I'm going to click Save. I'm going to refresh, and I'm going to refresh, I'm going to refresh, right? There's nothing under Lipsum 2 here that indicates that Lipsum 3 is nested under that. So there is a certain limitation on the amount of nesting that you can do with these pages. Basically, you get one sub-level, not two or more. So what I want to do is actually come over here and edit this. And I'm just going to say that the root here is Lipsum 1. I'm going to click Save. And now Lipsum 1 has 2 and 3 under it as nested pages. But there are a couple other things I wanted to touch on just real quick. We're going to jump over here to Portainer. And the reason I wanted to do this is because I wanted to show you this right here. This is our CodeX Docs latest image. It's 175 megs, which is actually more than 100 megs lighter than Portainer itself. So it's a very lightweight application as far as downloading the stuff that you need to deploy it. Also, if we jump over here to the memory usage and CPU usage and that sort of thing, it's using about 65 megs of RAM. Unless you're actively doing something, the CPU is doing nothing. Our network usage, we've used 1.7 megs, 1.6 megs of network transfer, no I/O going on right now. So it's a very, very lightweight application. So there is a quick and easy way to deploy CodeX Docs using Docker. Found a couple of little bugs that I hope they see this and fix with regards to not having a logout button. I think that would be pretty neat. And then also the nesting only goes one layer deep, even though their features say that you can build it however you want. Not entirely true based on my experience and what I just demonstrated here. But those two little things aside, oh, in a dark mode, I'd love to see a dark mode available. And maybe there is in the configuration and I missed it, but would also love to see a dark mode. So log out, dark mode, and additional nesting more than one layer deep. If they can fix those things, I wouldn't have any problem recommending this as a pretty solid documentation application for your application or your hardware or your whatever you need to write documentation about. I think this is a great option if they just tweak a couple of little things. But with all of that said, I'd like to know what your thoughts are in the comment section down below. As always, links to everything will be down in the description if you want to check that out. Again, if you dig this project, definitely go over to their GitHub repository, give the project a star, maybe you can consider supporting them in some other method if they've got that listed there as well. But I think with all of that said, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. I do want to thank you guys for spending a few minutes of your day with me today, and I'll talk to you in the next video.